am delighted to have Sophie Mirman, who is founder and creative director of Trotters, the children's emporium. I'm sure most people on this will know Trotters well. I have one in my high street, actually, in Chiswick. And she is also the founder, was also the founder of Tie Rack and Sock Shop. She has a huge amount of experience in business. She's going to share with us over the next 20 minutes or so. Sophie also won the Veuve Clicquot Award for Businesswoman of the Year. She won the Marketing Association Award for the Marketing Woman of the Year. And she also won a award for a Motivator of the Year, which I'm going to delighted to chat with you about that, Sophie, because I know that was one of the ones you are really proud about, which links back to the resilience of getting up, dusting oneself off, starting all over again. So I'd love to explore that with you. I guess first off, just to understand a little bit about your journey and how you ended up running a business. Was it planned? Did you fall into it? I know you're also a mother of three, a grandmother, and so we'll definitely touch on those aspects of your life as well. But from a business perspective first, love to understand, how did you get into this? You've founded, you're obviously a creative force in founding businesses. I'd love you to share with us, you know, what was that? What's that been like? What were the good times, the bad times?
Goodness, how long have you got?
We've got as long as it takes. That's good. That's the great thing about these podcasts.
Yeah. So I was brought up, my parents are both French, and I was brought up in a very much a fashion environment. My mother was a milliner. She made hats for really la crème de la crème of British society. Amongst others, she made for the Queen Mother, Princess Margaret. So she was a wonderful, wonderful designer. My father was also in the fashion business, and he actually introduced Christian Dior to the UK in the 1950s. So he was vice president of Christian Dior in the 50s and early 60s. So my upbringing was very much in that very high fashion, top end. However, my career started in the type you call at Marks and Spencer. So finances were very tough in my household. We had a very bad car crash when I was 13. And my parents were both very badly injured. As an only child, aged 13, I sort of became the boss of the family, because my parents were both in hospital for a long period of time. And they were both running their own businesses. So I was really chucked in at the deep end and having to sort of do everything. And for me, it was the turning point in my life. And I think at 13, it just stopped me from going through what can be sometimes silly teenage years. And it made me, I had to grow up very quickly because I was the sole person in charge. I didn't have any other family in the UK. So it really was quite a solitary experience and quite a traumatic experience. So finances after that weren't brilliant in the Mirman household. And therefore, my last 2 years at school, I went to a French school in London called the French Lycée. And my parents couldn't afford to pay the school fees. So I had to try and get a bursary for my final 2 years. It was either leave school at 16 or 15 and a half, or get a bursary and finish my education. And I was determined that I was going to try and finish my education. So I managed to get myself a bursary to finish my schooling. Then having finished school, I had a place at university to read Russian and economics. But I felt that I really had to try and help and participate in the family finances. So I didn't go to university. And I joined Marks and Spencer in the typing pool. And I was not a very good typist at all. I really hated it. It was not my best moment. And I was then lucky enough to be given an opportunity to work as a PA for Lord Seif, who was then the chairman. So I was 19 at this stage. And it was a wonderful opportunity. And in fact, everybody was quite terrified of him because he had a very deep voice. And he was he was a real icon in the business. And everybody held him in huge respect. But everybody was quite terrified of him. I thought, well, yeah, I might as well give it a chance and see where I go. So I worked for him for about 6 months. And he one day said to me, "What's your ambition in the business? What do you want to do?" I said to him, well, I would want to be the first woman on the board of Marks and Spencer. And he didn't laugh, he took it very seriously. And he said, well, if that's what you want to do, then you need to go and learn the business. So go and learn different areas of the business, go and leave my office for 4 weeks and just come back and tell me what you want to do.
What an amazing man at that time to do that. That must have been incredible.
Well, I think he was so glad to get rid of me as a secretary.
Bad typing.
Absolutely. So I took myself off to, in those days it was called staff management as opposed to HR. And I said, Lord Steve has said that he'd like me to do attachments to various bits of the business. And that went down like a ton of hot bricks, because this sort of 19-year-old little upstart saying that the chairman had sent her off to. Yeah. So so I did various attachments, and having spent time in buying, merchandising, staff management and stores, I really, really liked the store part of the business and the retail part. So I came back to Lord Steve and said, well, yeah, I love the shops, I love being out in the stores, that's what I'd like to do. And it was quite unusual, because most people started off in stores and the ambition was to come to head office, which was much cushier and much more comfortable. But I just always enjoyed that, the buzz of shopkeeping and retailing. So I went off and did a graduate training course, sort of graduate training course, although I wasn't a graduate. And it really taught me my love of retailing and shopkeeping. And I stayed in touch with Lord Steve, because he said to me, stay in touch, let me know what you're doing. So I'd send him regular little reports of what I was up to. Anyway, after 4 years in stores, when you work for a corporation, there's a ladder that you have to climb up. And it was slow progress. And I just wanted to move up faster than was possible in a corporate environment. So I decided after 4 years in stores, so 6 years in total, it was time really for me to move on. So I applied for a job. It was a group of financiers who were looking for somebody to set up a retail business selling ties. Went along for the interview. Didn't really. I had two offers on the table. One was this new startup that was setting up shops to sell ties, and the other one was for a small chain of supermarkets who were looking for a French person to source all French produce. So that was really what I fancied. But the tie rack made me an offer that I just couldn't refuse, and therefore I joined Tie Rack. And that's where I met my husband. So I came in as managing director. I think I was 24 at the time. I met my husband Richard, who came in a couple of months after me as finance director. I didn't think I needed a finance director. I was very happy doing the whole thing on my own.
That's extraordinary. So 24, amazing.
Yes, our initial contact was, please come and check what I'm doing. This is not okay. Anyway, we got on like a house on fire, and I stayed at Tie Rack for a year and a half. In that time, I opened 18 shops, and it was an extraordinary experience, because I'd never, having been in Marks and Spencer, you look after the little area that you're in, but you have no concept really of the business as a whole. Here, I was really thrown in the deep end. I joined the company. I was told, okay, in a month and a half, we're opening 3 stores. Go and do it. So,
did you have a mentor around you, or I mean, how was there someone there guiding you at all, or
it was the financiers. It was the financiers who said, this is what we want to do. Go and do it. So I had to learn all of it. I knew nothing about ties. I knew nothing about how they were made, where you bought them from, but so I had to deal with all the buying, deal with the shop fitters, deal with the architects, recruit the staff. So it was a fantastic experience. But the founders of the company and Richard and I didn't share the same values. And I wasn't prepared, however much I earned, and I was earning an absurdly high salary. But I wasn't prepared to sell my soul to the devil. And therefore, I'd had the idea for Sock Shop while I was still at Tie Rack. And I'd actually offered it to the financiers, saying, I've got this idea, this is what we should be doing alongside Tie Rack. And they just laughed it out of court and thought it was an absurd idea. So Rich and I spoke about it, and we both felt that it was a commercial opportunity. So we both left Tyrac together, having been there for a year and a half, and started off our first sock shop in Knightsbridge Underground Station, which was quite terrifying because we had to, we had no money, so we had to borrow everything that we needed to start the business.
Was that borrowing from friends and family at those times? Did you get finance, or was
no? We actually borrowed from the bank. There was a very good scheme in the early 80s that enabled young businesses to borrow money with no guarantee. So it was a fantastic scheme. So we set up Sock Shop with the aim of really having 2 or 3 shops, and we both worked in the store at the beginning, and we did everything. And my sitting room was the pricing area, so we'd sort of sit and price all the stock. And Sock Shop just caught the imagination of the public, and I think because our philosophy, our policy, was to put shops in underground stations and train stations, so it would be easy for customers on their way into work and on their way home from work to be able to stop and buy something which is an everyday necessity. And hosiery wasn't particularly well sold in those days. So that was the concept. And it all went swimmingly until the mid-1980s, when there was a series of wildcat transport strikes for a whole year. And the effect of that was, for 3 days a week, we had 80% of our stores closed because stations were closed. On the day before on the day after the strike, rolling stock wasn't in the right place. So it was a complete disaster. Alongside that, there was a very hot summer followed by a very mild winter. And whatever we did to try and convince women that they should be wearing tights, they were having none of it. So there was a decline in the home market business because the climate was just wrong for tights. Alongside that, we'd gone public. We'd gone on the unlisted securities market, and I remember the day that we floated the company, the share price doubled on the first day of trading, and the shares were oversubscribed something like 50 times. And Rich and I walked over Hampstead Heath, and we just both had the same feeling: what have we done? We just made a terrible mistake. Because we felt that we'd lost control of the business. We then expanded too fast. We expanded into America, which was an absolute disaster. So there's a whole series of events. Interest rates doubled from 7% to 15%, and all that was within a 2-year period. So all those factors pulled together to mean that Sock Shop went into administration in the late 1980s. And we stayed with the company for a bit. And the company was sold, but actually working for somebody else when it's your own baby it just didn't work for us. So by that stage, we had 2 young children. And we'd had the idea for Trotters, or a business that really brought everything for children from 0 to 10 under one roof and made it fun for children. And it was really my experience of taking my son William, who was 1.5, to get his hair cut in Harrods, actually. And he didn't want to get his hair cut, and he made it quite clear to the hairdresser that she was not coming anywhere near him with this sharp implement.
I remember that very well myself.
But you tell children not to touch anything sharp, and then a perfect stranger comes up to them with a pair of scissors. It's scary, and it's very close contact. So that was a traumatic experience for William. And I then took my daughter Natasha to buy a pair of shoes, and she set her heart on this bright pink pair of boots with green dots on it. They were very fancy. So having spent a long time really choosing what she wanted, we showed it to the sales assistant, who went away and came back 10 minutes later with a huge pile of shoes, saying, well, I haven't got the ones that you want, however, I have got all these other options. And poor Natasha was absolutely crestfallen because she'd set her heart on these particular shoes. And it was those 2 experiences that really made me realise that shopping for children actually wasn't much fun, and wasn't much fun for them. So I wanted to make an environment that was fun for children, And if it's fun for children, then the theory was that they would bring their parents in, and everybody would have a sort of relatively relaxed and enjoyable experience.
And what's, you talked about values, Sophie, earlier. You talked about values when you set up Tyrac, and that perhaps those values weren't the same as the financiers, and perhaps in some ways when you went public and had lost that control, but also that was perhaps a different value set, developing. Talk to me about that. I'm really interested in the idea of what value sets you have as an individual, and how that's, I guess, shaped the business. And also, is it shaped you as a leader? I mean, I'm using the word leader in the context of, you're a visionary and you're a creator, but to some degree you're leading the way, and I'm sure leading the people that work for you. So how have values and principles guided you, shaped you?
Well, I think having gone through a financially tough time as a teenager, I understood the value of money, and not being flash, not wasting it, and not our lifestyle didn't change when we went public, because I've always been very cautious, and I think something that Lord Seif taught me very early on is the importance that respect plays in getting other people to perform, and that's something that I've always, sort of mutual respect, and whoever I'm talking to, I will talk to in the same way, whether it's the lady cleaning the lavatory on a motorway service station, or whether it's the chairman of a company. There should be no difference in the way that you treat people and the respect that you have for people. So really, that for me is a big thing. So respect, mutual respect, and expecting that respect really from everybody that I work with.
And you, I'm fascinated in this idea of, as a woman leader, as a woman visionary. Have you found it harder, do you think, as a woman? Is it the same? I mean, someone asked me once to write a book on the challenges of being a woman myself, a woman founder. And I was sort of like, well, I don't know that I've had that many differences as a woman or a man, and yet we know a lot of women that write to us that says they hit a ceiling at 50, 55 plus, particularly in the corporate world, and find that age is often a barrier for them. So how has that been for you? I know as a entrepreneur, it might be slightly different, but I'm interested in, have you struggled at all? Has anything come up as a woman leader, or how have you got over that? And how have you found perhaps being able to push back or get over those issues as well?
Well, I think it's what I was saying earlier, that it is treating everybody in the same way. And just not accepting to be bullied. And when I left Tyrac, I wasn't happy with the way that I was being pushed to treat some members of staff, and I wasn't prepared to accept that. And therefore, I moved on, because I wasn't prepared to be drawn into something that I didn't feel comfortable with. But it's interesting that just going back to the beginning when I was mentioning about Lord Seif and saying to me I wanted to be the first woman on the board of Marks and Spencer. When Sockshop went public, actually Marcus came on our board as a non-executive director, and he always thought that was very funny. And he used to say, he thought it was quite an amusing anecdote.
Do you still hold that ambition, Sophie, to be on the board of M&S?
No. That was a 19-year-old ambition.
Okay, I just wondered. I mean, with your vision and energy, it might be quite interesting for M&S right now. But anyway, so tell me a little bit about how you balance the family and the business. And I know that your daughter Natasha is in the business, so I'm fascinated in how that's been in terms of working with your daughter, maybe handing some things over to the next generation. And do you have similar styles of leadership, or are they very different?
I think they are. I think they're quite. I mean, we have different personalities, and in fact, Richard, Natasha, and I all have different personalities, and it sort of works well, the three together. But I think the best move that we made was actually appointing an external CEO, because that's allowed our relationship to be a family relationship. So it's a mother-daughter relationship rather than a mother-daughter boss-employee relationship. Of course, what's interesting when you employ your children is that they don't talk to you in the same way as an employee in their position would talk to their employer. And as an employer, I don't talk to my daughter in the same way as I would do another employee, because we know each other so well, and we know the buttons to press to sometimes irritate each other, to get each other going, and having somebody independent to come in and work alongside the three of us. So Richard, Natasha and I are still very much in the business. Richard is the chairman, I'm the creative director, so I get all the nice bits to do. And Natasha is the COO. So the three of us work very closely with the CEO, but he's sort of in the middle. So, in fact, when we recruited an external CEO, it was an interesting thing to do, because it was quite nerve-wracking to take on an external person to come into a family business in a senior role. And I spoke to several non-executive directors who'd been in a similar position whereby they joined family businesses, and just to get their take on it, because I think it's equally difficult for the CEO to come in to a tight-knit community.
Very much. I've tried a few times with my business. It's really hard, isn't it?
Really hard. And my store, all the team that I have working with me at Trotters it's very much a family. I've got 140 staff. And some of my team have been with me from day one. Many of them have been with me from day one. So it really feels like they're part of the family. So hard for someone to come in and to take over that sort of patriarchal role. And what was key talking to the non-exec directors who had joined family businesses was that you shouldn't be able to put a sheet of cigarette paper between the founders and the CEO. Yeah. And you can have it out, and you can have your disagreements, you can have your battles in a private, but you come out of that room, and whoever the founders and the CEO is have to be absolutely on the same track. So very early on, we set up, in fact, from day one, actually, we set up a weekly catch-up, which is no agenda, no minutes. And it is just, so it's Richard, me, and our CEO just having a completely honest discussion about what's gone on, any thoughts, anything that needs to be done in the business. And so we can all come out absolutely in the same direction. So that's been really good for us, and Ed's been with us for a year now. He certainly didn't sign up for what's happened in the past 4 months. But actually having him on board has been brilliant, because I don't think that, having gone through the traumas of sock shop and administration, that either Richard or I would have the bandwidth to go through and to motivate the teams through what's been such an unbelievably difficult time in the last 4 months. And he's been superb at doing that motivation exercise.
Isn't that wonderful that you had someone around right then?
Yeah.
Obviously settled in a little bit, but was able to hold that space for you as well.
Absolutely.
And how has, I know you and I spoke a little bit around this when we checked in before our conversation, but how has that been through COVID? And I know you said that you've managed to sustain the online activities reasonably well, but I imagine it has been extremely hard for all of your people and the business as a whole.
It has. So all our stores closed early on, and I think that the businesses were ahead of the curve. So the government announced that businesses had to close the 20th of March, but we already knew that was going to happen. So we actually closed before we were told that we had to close. And before any furloughing schemes were announced, we knew that we would pay all our staff in full for the whole month of March, and we would then pay them 80% of salary for as long as we possibly could afford it. But we had no idea how long that was going to be. So the stores all closed, and we also had no idea whether we'd be able to continue fulfilling orders for our online business, because nobody knew. There could have been a complete lockdown and nobody be allowed to go to work. So it was the first 3 weeks of lockdown I think I lost about 4 kilos in weight, and it was just complete anxiety. And I'm quite a calm person, but it was just complete anxiety of being, feeling that I was totally out of control, that I had no idea what was going on, what the outcome was going to be, what the future of the business was going to look like. And it was actually horrible. It was just a very, really horrible 4 weeks.
And you presumably are working through that now to reopen. I know you've opened some of the stores already, and just, I guess, you know, it's a different world for all of us, isn't it? Both as retailers and as shoppers, I guess.
Very different. So we were fortunate that we had a strong online business, and that, you know, having been able to continue with that online business, really projected where we saw that business. We had a 5-year plan, or we've sort of skipped it straight into year 3 for our online business, because pretty much everything went online. The online didn't make up for the difference of the stores being closed, but it certainly kept the wolves from the door. The challenge now is that, you know, I read that last Saturday, the West End of London footfall was 75% down on the previous year. High streets generally are 50% down on the previous year. And, you know, it's a totally different shopping experience. So the important thing for us getting our teams back to work was to make sure that they felt totally comfortable coming back, and they didn't feel they were being pushed into something that they weren't comfortable doing. So we've been draconian in the measures that we've put in place in our stores. You know, all our staff wear either visors or masks. We only allow a certain number of people in the store. The first 3 weeks of trading was by appointment only. And we've only just reopened our hairdressing, and we've got hand sanitizers, and we've been absolutely draconian. I find it fascinating that I can go into my local food store, and nobody's wearing any protection.
There's no hand sanitizers. There's no hand sanitizers.
There's nothing. I just find it extraordinary that food retailers seem to be able to operate relatively normally with seemingly no restrictions, whereas every other non-essential business, at the risk of a prison sentence, is having to put in place these hugely draconian measures. So I just find the whole thing quite confusing, actually, that there's a disconnect between so many things at the moment, and so much advice that is confusing.
And I guess, as you said, you know, it's we still don't know how things are going to go. So you've got to, but that ability, I imagine, both the resilience that you've had over the years, and that close-knit team, I love the word you use, family, that close-knit team, that family, plus the CEO that's got that kind of energy and abilities and capacity to hold that. It sounds like you are in a great place, at least, to be able to hopefully find a way forward now and navigate this. Fingers crossed, whatever.
Yeah, I think so. And I visited all my stores this week, actually, and two of the stores I went into, I had team members who were literally in tears. They said, you know, we're so happy to be back, and you know, they were very emotional about seeing me going back into something. It was quite an extraordinary experience, actually.
Isn't it funny how life, you know, this is, as you said, it's you know, it's never been in our lifetime before, something like this. You've had those ups and downs in business, and yet this is another completely new experience at this time in your life.
Yes, yeah. This one really is extraordinary.
Different, and not perhaps, you know, it's a different one to navigate, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell me, I'd love to know a little bit about, I suppose, that the world outside of you, in who you look to and who you admire, because I know, I can imagine so many people admire what you've done as a visionary and as an entrepreneur. And are there people that inspire you out there, women or men, that you know, that you think, yeah, you know, I really like what she's done or he's done, or that have helped you?
Yes, I think that I'm always intrigued by people's management style. And I suppose that throughout my career, I've taken bits from various people and sort of created my own style. I suppose that there's no question the most influential influential person for me was Lord Seif, who was quite extraordinary. But my parents were also very inspirational. I was an only child. My mother was 45 when I was born, having thought that she could never have children. So I came as a complete surprise. And I had a very close relationship with both my parents. And they had, my father he had an extraordinary, they were both very French. And my father had this extraordinary charm where he would manage to get people to do things that they really didn't want to do and didn't realize that they were saying that yes, they would do, just by using his charm and by using his guile. And he always managed to get things done by just using absolute wonderful charm.
I wonder if you've got some of that, because you've obviously managed to get a hell of a lot done in your life.
I don't know. And my mother had just wonderful sort of quiet strength. I don't think my mother ever got angry with me. We never had a fight. We never had an argument. And actually, Richard and I don't have arguments. We've always agreed on what we've done. And even in tough times when it could have been, it could have really pulled us apart, we've never had an argument about the business. We've always agreed, and there's never been any blame. And I think it's going back to what I was saying earlier on, that I think that if you have a family business, you have to have that mutual respect for each other and for each other's roles and each other's strengths and weaknesses. And what's important is that you balance out each other's strengths and weaknesses. And actually, Richard and I do. He's a terrible pessimist, and I'm an optimist. And I think you have to have different personalities in order for the business to work, and different roles in order for the business to work.
And I was going to ask you, probably cheekily, but I was going to ask you whether, and you maybe have answered it, that respect. There's also the relationship. It sounds like you've got an extraordinary relationship with Richard, because to work with someone for that long and to, live with them and partner with them, how does that work as a relationship? Is it fundamentally about this respect within the relationship as well that makes that work?
Absolutely. And we've always worked together, and I can't imagine not working together. It's been fantastic for us. And I say we have very different roles, but we absolutely share the same values. And our thought process is always very similar. Especially we've worked together for, blimey, well over 30 years, because Trotters is going to be 30 this year. So we've worked together for, my God, almost 40 years. That makes me sound terribly ancient. I don't feel that ancient.
Don't look ancient.
But it
sound ancient to me.
We've worked together for 40 years. Yeah. I think we need to celebrate.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
And it's, and it's always been, we've always worked very, very well together.
And I know in these uncertain times that might be a difficult question. Is there another chapter for you guys? Do you have any ideas of setting something else up? Is Trotters your baby now that you're going to carry on with, and it's something you want to nurture, continue? And
well, Trotters is certainly something I want to nurture and continue. I've got various other ideas that are bubbling away in the background. At some stage, I suppose that I'll have to. I can't imagine retiring. I think my mother was 80 when she retired, so I've got a few more years to go. But I can't imagine retiring, because actually I'm still completely passionate about what I do, and I love what I do, and I think that I still have a strong input in the creative and the design side. The day my team say to me, do you know what, it's time to hang your gloves up, then I'll consider it. But I'm never quite happy with what we've done. I always feel that we can improve. So at the beginning of each season, I look at our stores and say, oh God, we've done it looks fantastic. We've done a really good job. And then by mid-season, I'm thinking, well, yeah, we've done a really good job. But however, if we did this, this, and this, actually it could be even better. And I'm lucky enough to work with a team who completely share that passion, and who also share the fact that they also feel there's constantly room for improvement. So it's not a question of, nobody rests on their laurels. They always strive for just a little bit better, a little bit different, sort of moving sideways. So it's never a revolution, but it's a real evolution of what we're doing.
I noticed on your online, actually, on the online business, you do toys. And I noticed that one of those, Sophie, was toys for sort of helping children with anxiety. I was just really interested in that because it hadn't been something I suppose that I had seen as kind of toys coming out to support that. And I'm fascinated with that. Is that something that you produced out of experiences or insights or conversations you'd had with mothers?
Do you know, something that actually came out of lockdown, where we set up on our website a Beat the Boredom section, just with various links to recipes or fun things to do, or how to keep your children entertained. And I've got lots of friends who have young children, so it's really also their experience and their experience of their children's anxiety over this period. So one of my friends, a French woman, and she's got a little 3-year-old, and she was saying her 3-year-old just stands at the garden fence, and every time somebody walks past, she's saying, "Will you be my friend?" Because she just misses this, or missed at the beginning, the interaction, and just seeing friends with young children and the anxiety that they've had with homeschooling, dealing with discipline. It's hard. So it was really trying to find ways to, I suppose, what we try and do at Trotters is have toys and books that aren't generally widely available. So we try and really source toys that are different, that are educational, that are fun, that are sustainable, that are made of wood, that are, sustainability is a huge part of any business. And we don't manufacture any of our clothing in the Far East at all. Everything is made in Europe. And that's a decision that we took 20 years ago. We didn't want to source in the Far East. We wanted to work with small family factories in Portugal and in Spain. And the factories that we deal with now are the businesses that we dealt with 20 years ago, and we've grown together. So the factories are also part of the extended Trotters family. And I have to say, they've all been absolutely amazing during this lockdown, where we had to cancel some orders. And everybody's had to be super flexible. And the advantage of working with these small businesses is actually they've got the same, and they have the same values as we do. Again, I don't want to work with businesses where there isn't the respect for employees. It's not somewhere I want to visit, and therefore that's really important. And we've got a wonderful relationship with our suppliers, and we sort of talk to each other and have that great flexibility.
And I guess, thank you for sharing that about the toys, because I was intrigued, and I can absolutely see that, and how brilliant that you've gone and done that to support children now, because I think this will go on for quite a while, won't it? So it's great. That's learning and a support mechanism. I'd love, I think, just you've shared so much. There's 2 things that I'd love to ask you, if I may, before we end. You talked a lot about your parents and the French connect, the upbringing in France, and obviously I didn't know how much of a background you had in fashion from obviously a very, very early age. What does style mean for you? We do quite a bit of work in Rock My Age on style, and I'm fascinated as a French woman. What does style mean for you?
Goodness, that's a very big question, because style has so many different aspects. You talk about style of clothing or style of
just generally. I mean, it's just a sense of you've obviously brought style into your shops. Tie Rack and Sock Shop were very stylish, and I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? In particular times, different styles come to the fore, and maybe it's about the style actually of your leadership, based on this sense of respect. I was just fascinated because people always want to emulate the French style, so I was just interested in
my team always laugh at me, because my uniform is, and it has been, for as long as I can remember, I always wear white jeans. Summer, come winter, that's my uniform, normally with a navy top on.
Brilliant.
And I ride a bicycle everywhere, so on a rainy day, the challenge, of course, is how do I keep my white jeans white? The stores always know when I'm coming because they can see the white pair of jeans and a navy top walking down the high street.
That's so French as well. How lovely, the bicycle, the top. Actually, I saw on your website you were baking at some point. You had a Breton top on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you had Breton top and white jeans. But that's so classic, isn't it? The blue top, blue navy top, white jeans.
And that's been my uniform for forever and ever.
Wonderful, love it.
So that's my personal style.
Thank you. And I guess lastly, you know, everything that you've gone through, what advice would you give to you as a younger self, you know, starting out at 24, 25 now? So things that you might say to yourself?
What would I say to myself? I would say to myself, make sure that you are always flexible, and just develop the ability to be resilient. Don't take things personally, and you have to be able to bounce back. And if you have a setback, just develop that ability to put it behind you, lock it away, and just move on. And don't be bitter about anything that's happened in the past, because it's the past, and actually there's nothing you can do about it. And I suppose that my philosophy for really forever, and this is something that I learned from my mother actually, is just if there's something that happens that you can affect in some way positively, then absolutely bust a gut to do it. But if something happens that's totally out of your control, just don't waste energy on it, because if there's nothing you can do about it, there's no point getting dragged down into a horrible quagmire that is then very difficult to get out of. So I've always tried to just keep the policy or the philosophy of positive thinking, and actually if something's happened, change it if it's bad and you can. If you can't, just pull it out like a bad weed. Just pull it out and just forget about it. Don't revisit it, because there is little point. Nothing positive comes out of it.
Very wise words. We have to let things go and move on, don't we, with all that?
We have to, absolutely.
Sophie, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to speak to you, really. I admired you from afar for a very long time.
You're very kind.
To be able to speak to you and for you to share your stories with us. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So my husband came through from the garden. So
that's fine. Don't worry. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry at all. Yeah, it was great. It was lovely, and the way that you shared all of that. It's great learning for everyone. So really appreciate it.
You're very well. Just let me know when it's coming out. Or when
I will. Of course I will. We'll probably do a mix because of the channels. We'll do a mix of, visible and some podcasts probably, and it'll be on we do a YouTube channel and obviously on our website, and probably on ITGV on Instagram as a podcast.
Okay.
There might be some other things as well, but I'll let you know absolutely beforehand, and it'll be exactly as is. We won't edit it. What we sometimes do is for some channels, we know on our website, it might take little snippets of little advice bits you've given.
Right. Okay.
But it'll be in its form. And thank you. It's so kind of you. And I wish you so much success through this time.
Well, and the same to you. And I hope we will come out the other end with I hope we come out the other end with a better world. I fear that we won't. I fear that we'll just go back to our old habits.
It feels like we're going back, doesn't it? That's the worst thing. It feels like we're going back.
Does. Yeah, it sort of does.
Cars are the same and everything's like, although I have to say I did venture up to the West End the other day, and it was like a ghost town, and it felt really odd. I mean, very nice. It just felt very strange.
Funny, I think what has happened is that drivers have become much more aggressive, and I can see that on my bike. They're just much more speeding. There's much more road rage, and it's shame.
Weirdly, my business is 31 years as well. So when you were saying that, I was thinking we set up about the same time. So that's
congratulations. That's
it's nice. It's nice to have done. And we were same as you, not so much a family. My son's only 24 and I haven't passed it on. But we've always had the values of family. And my finance lady's been with me since day one, 31 years, and
fantastic.
Yeah, my creative director 28 years. And yeah,
Wow.
my PA the same. So I think we've had, what struck me always is very similar values to you, I think, in the way.
Yes.
So it's been so nice to finally meet you.
Good. Well, good to meet you, and good luck with your business.
Thank you, and you, Sophie. Take
All
care.
right. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.